Brake squeal can be caused by a number of different factors, so there's a bit of trial and error of getting to the bottom of it, but follow this process and you'll have quiet brakes by the end of it. First of all, we're going to check the rotors. So stick your bike in a work stand. If you haven't got one, just pop it upside down, but be careful if you've got a dropper post that you don't put it on the lever. Then we're going to look at the rotor and make sure that it's straight. Now, give the wheel a spin, keeping your fingers well away from the rotor because you don't want to get them stuck in there. And just have a look at it as it's going through the caliper and make sure it's straight. If it is bent at all, then you can try and straighten it with an adjustable spanner. But if it's too bent, then you're just gonna have to replace the rotor, unfortunately. The rotor itself needs to be super clean, free from oil particularly. That can really cause it to howl. So to sort it out, use a disc brake cleaner or a solvent and give it a good clean. If you're already out on the trail though, you could actually just use a bit of mud, put that on the brakes and then brake hard, and that potentially can clean it off. With the rotor sorted, let's look at the pads next. So remove them from the bike and then check to see if they are contaminated with any kind of oil as well. Now, it's really highly likely that if your brakes are squealing, particularly the back one, that is the case. So remove them and just check to see whether you can see. If they are, then you've got two options. Firstly, you can try the mud trick, brake hard, and hopefully that'll clean it off. Or, cheeky little pro tip, if you happen to have a blowtorch handy, and who doesn't, stick it in a vise and then you can actually boil off the oil from the pads. If they're not contaminated, what might have happened is that they've got too hot and then become glazed over. So that's where the surface of the pad becomes really hard and then you actually lose braking performance as well. If that's the case, then you can pop it in a vise and then very gently just file off the top of the surface. Not too much, otherwise you're just wasting pads, but that might help. Lastly, we'll look at the caliper itself. Now, it should sit squarely over the rotor and you should be able to see an equal amount of space on either side of the pads. Now, if it's not and the wheel isn't spinning freely, then it is a really quick job just to try and square it. It's a case of loosening the two mounting bolts there so there's a bit of freedom on the caliper and then squeezing the levers tight and then retightening the bolts, and that generally does it. It's probably not going to be the cause of your brake squealing, but it might be, and it's always worth doing it anyway. So there you go then, 3 simple things just to check. That your caliper is mounted squarely, that your rotor isn't bent, and then that there's no contamination on your pads or your rotor at all. For more maintenance videos, why not click up there to see that playlist, and then to put it all into practice out on the trail, check out our how-to videos down there. Finally, make sure you subscribe to GMBN so that you can become a complete mountain biker.